Dark and Darker is one of the most addicting games that has come out in a long time, and you may have never even heard about it, which isn't all that surprising considering the game isn't even purchasable on the more standard platforms such as Steam. It currently is in early access and you can only buy it from their website. Unlike other games stuck in the purgatory that is known as early access, Dark and Darker has plenty of content for you to go through. The only real negatives about the game that I have so far are just optimization issues and bugs that I expect for them to fix up as time goes on. It is a smaller indie company, so I can forgive a lot of these things, as they don't have a huge team like other big budget AAA companies do. And so far, all of their communication has been excellent on what they are working on and what they are planning for the game's future. So what is Dark and Darker? Well, it's essentially a Dungeons & Dragons fantasy-themed battle royale. You have to go through dungeons, kill enemy players, as well as all sorts of evil creatures, take all of their loot, and get to an escape portal before you die in the zone. You have several different classes that you can pick from, each with different playstyles that you can customize through skills and perks. As you level up, you can unlock additional perks to make your character stronger, which will open up additional ways to play the class. You can even unlock different races that can change what your base stats are. If you want more agility, you can be an elf. If you would prefer strength, you can be an orc. Hell, they even have a skeleton race that gives you more magic resistance. You have melee classes such as fighter, barbarian, and rogue that excel at killing things up close, dealing heavy amounts of damage while also being harder to kill. Then you have ranged classes such as the Wizard, Ranger, and Warlock that can do insane amounts of damage from a distance, but they are a lot more vulnerable, especially if a melee class ever reaches them. There are even some support classes that can heal or buff in various ways, such as the Cleric or the Bard. They already have 8 classes currently in the game, but they are planning on making a total of 13 for the final release. Some of the classes they are working on include the Druid, Paladin, Monk, Sorcerer, and Artificer. There are also several different maps or dungeons that you can choose to play through. Each one offers something different, from the enemies to mini-bosses, traps, or even the quality of the loot. I like to look at them in a bit of a different way, since each map has a limit on how many can be in a party when you queue up for it. So in other words, there is a solo map, a duos map, and a trios map. You do have the ability to play as a solo even on these bigger maps, which is higher risk, but also offers higher rewards. Since nobody will be watching your back, you will have to play more carefully, but at the same time it also means you won't have to share any of the treasure. Some classes, like Rogue, can pull off solo play a lot easier thanks to their high mobility combined with being able to go invisible. However, if you want to find some players to group with, they have a gathering hall where you can find plenty of different people, all separated by their classes, and I've had some really good experiences since most of the player base is quite friendly. You may have a few bad runs here and there, but it's really not that big of an issue to just leave and find a new group if things don't work out. Personally, I always make sure to go in with lower quality gear whenever I group with new players, just to make sure I don't risk anything valuable in case things aren't working out. Luckily, there is a party chat system, so it's pretty easy to communicate with your team in game, and they even have a proximity chat so you can mess around with enemy teams. Overall, you can play however you'd like, either solo or by grouping up. It's all pretty easy. It all really just depends on how antisocial you're feeling that day. Once you have played for a while and you have a stash full of gold, the same old dungeons won't be offering as much challenge as they used to. That's when the high roller dungeons come in. These are dungeons that you have to pay gold in order to even queue for. And not only are all the mobs tougher, but every player inside will also be geared out of their minds. It's a fantastic way to challenge yourself and play things on hard mode. Of course, it goes without saying, but the loot is way better, especially if you're killing the enemy players. I mean, you can just get everything that they brought in with them. It's amazing, really. As for the loot itself, there are all kinds of different gear and consumables. You have your armor and weapons, all that have different qualities from rares to legendaries that will give you additional stats. There are also healing items such as bandages, campfires, and healing potions, but then they also have utility items such as potions of invisibility or potions of protection or even potions of clarity in order to get your spells back. The rest of the stuff you find in the dungeon will basically be smaller little collectibles such as gems that are purely meant to be sold in order for you to get gold. In my experience, these healing items are really the most valuable, especially if you are playing solo. Healing takes a long time, and that means taking damage is really brutal in the long run. While at first it may seem pretty simple to kill all of the PvE mobs and get their loot, you will realize just how fast things can get out of hand. Taking damage during any of the PvE fights can be pretty punishing since it will slow you down. Taking on one mob at a time can be pretty easy, but once you add in PvP, it really does shake everything up. Starting a PvP fight against enemy players who are distracted from a mob or busy looking at treasure is one of the best ways to get an easy kill. So being at full health is always a top priority. As for the gameplay loop, it's pretty satisfying. It never really gets old for me, and trying out all kinds of different perk and skill combinations on all of the different classes is a lot of fun. There is also a lot of variety in just trying out different 3-man team comps. The sense of progression feels really good, starting out as a squishy level 1 with nothing, all the way to becoming a fully kitted level 20. The journey is something I really enjoyed, and I actually found myself making new level 1 characters just to experience that grind all over again. There are so many classes in the game, I haven't even touched some of them yet, which is pretty crazy considering I've probably put in over 100 hours. There is still just so much for me to try in this game. It gets kind of crazy when I remember just how much more content is actually on the way for all of these future updates. I think this game has a bright future, it really just needs some polish. Once the game has become fully optimized and it has all of the technical issues sorted out with everything working perfectly, then I think it will be a real contender for being one of my favorite games of all time. For now, I rate this game 8.7 out of 10. It still has a little bit to go before I can bring it to the 9s, but there is no doubt in my mind it will get there. I love the perfect blend of RPG and PvP elements. I'm really looking to all of the new content since they will be adding all kinds of new dungeons, spells, perks, and classes. Overall, Dark and Darker is worth the buy, and I highly recommend it. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.
Hey, you boys out of ranged weapons?